Well, hey everybody, I'm Jamie Trull. For those who do not know me, I am a CPA. I'm also a financial literacy coach and profit strategist. So say that 3 times fast. So typically I'm helping business owners understand their finances a little bit better. Right now, what I'm really doing is switching focus to do everything stimulus related and really follow this closely for you and help you decode all of these crazy things coming out from the Treasury. What are these loans? What do I do with unemployment? What are these tax credits? What am I supposed to do right now? And how do I get help that I need, right? So that is what I'm doing for you. So today, what I wanted to do was talk to you about a question that I have gotten over and over and over again. And that is, what happens if I take unemployment, i.e. usually pandemic unemployment assistance, right? If you are a business owner yourself, can I get unemployment and PPP? And I wanted to really expand on this because really there's not a lot. When you try to search this, all that comes up is, nope, you're not supposed to do that. And actually, I believe that there's a little bit more to it than that. And so I want to kind of talk through your options with you guys so that you can see and make the decision on what makes sense for you, for yourself. And you can actually see what the guidance really says versus just maybe what your accountant is telling you or maybe what you're reading on the internet. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit here, but let's kind of back up just for a second. What I'm talking about here is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loan, as it's called. It's new with the CARES Act. It's essentially meant to primarily be a payroll loan, right? So either for yourself, if you are a sole proprietor, you can pay yourself with it, or an LLC. You can also pay employees with it if you have them. There are lots of different options there, but basically the main purpose of the loan is to be able to supplement your income because of COVID-19 and potentially some revenue declines that you might have experienced as a business owner, which I think most of us have, right, at this point. So that's really the purpose of it. They throw in a little bit of extra money that you can use for things like rent, utilities, etc., but only if you use the payroll portion the way that you're supposed to. So that's why payroll is so important here. So that's really the intention. And really, they want to get people off of unemployment. They want you to go back and hire your employees. They want you to be able to pay them what they were paid before so that you can kind of take some of the pressure off of the unemployment system, which if you've seen the news lately, unemployment claims are crazy bananas right now. So they really want to shift that back to the employer, get people hiring people back, and really try to kind of restart the economy that way. But I want to talk a little bit because there's a little bit of gray area here, you guys. There's a little bit of gray area. And so I'm going to tell you what that gray area is. Now, I have to say, this goes back to risk tolerance, and everybody's going to have a slightly different risk tolerance. So in the absence of very specific bright line rules, there can be gray area. And that gray area, and whether you want to walk into that gray area, is up to you as a business owner and your specific risk tolerance, right? As a self-employed person, that is up to you. So I can tell you again, I'm going to show you what this says, and then you can interpret this for yourself. And also, I need to remind you, remember, what's happening right now is the rules are changing very quickly. So as of right now, there may not be a specific rule against something. There may kind of be some, I won't call them loopholes because I don't really feel like that's what it is, but there may be some ability to do things that in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, they could come out with guidance and say, you know what, actually, you can't do that. So if that happens, I'm going to make sure that I update this video. So look down below if you're watching this right now. I'm recording this. I believe it's May 15th when I'm recording this. And if there have been any changes between May 15th, 2020 and when you are watching this, I will have written them down below. So I want you to get those updates. So on this specific issue, if anything has come out, any developments from the Treasury, I will be sure to update that. So make sure you're checking those notes below as well. Okay. So now you're wondering, okay, what can I do here? So I'm going to talk specifically to self-employed people right now. So if you're self-employed, and in most cases, right now I'm going to talk to those of you who are taking the loan as a sole proprietor or an LLC, okay? So you might have taken the PPP loan to help supplement your income. That loan would have been calculated based off of your 2019 Schedule C, okay? You may have also have employees that you included payroll reports for, but your own owner pay should have been included in there, and it should have been based off of your 2019 tax return Schedule C. That's what lists your revenue and your expenses. And you're going to go to line 31, which is your net profit. That is what your loan should have included as a basis for your owner payroll, okay? That line, divide it by 52, multiply it by 8. that is the amount you can be forgiven as a sole proprietor, LLC, independent contractor, okay? If you're not a corp, right? That is the amount you will be forgiven for your owner payroll. That is automatic. Not in the sense that you don't have to apply for forgiveness, because you're probably going to have to still apply for forgiveness, but the calculation is automatic. You're not going to have to go show your bank statements to show actually moving that amount of money to yourself, right? It's not going to get into the nitty gritty of that. That doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense for sole proprietors, given the way that they pay taxes and how payroll is actually calculated. It's off of your net profit. Not the amount that you actually take out of your business. So that actually is a rule that Treasury made. If you want to go check it out, you can see it on treasury.gov. It's going to be your interim final rule that was issued on April 14th. That's the one that talks about all the rules for sole proprietors, LLCs. Those of you who are not a corp, that's a great read. Now, not a great read because it's interesting, but it's a great read just to understand what is going on and what the rules are specifically for you. So that's how your pay will be calculated, right? So what if you do that and you realize, okay, wait, so 8 weeks of payroll for me, that's only $500 a week, right? Or that's only $200 a week. What if it's a really low amount? What do you do then? And for a lot of you guys, you're getting your PPP loans at maybe the same time that finally your unemployment claim that you put in weeks and weeks, maybe over a month ago, is coming through and getting approved. And so now you've been approved for pandemic unemployment assistance, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I do? Because I have PPP now. They deposited in my bank account, and I have pandemic unemployment assistance. And come to find out, maybe pandemic unemployment assistance would have been more, okay? What do you do? Some people are deciding, you know what, I'm going to give back my loan. That is an option. We don't know if there's going to be any kind of follow-up on that for people. If they're going to look and say, well, you know, you had access to this PPP. Why did you return it to get unemployment? I think that's a pretty easy answer as to why. And right now, there's nothing that says that you can't do that. So that's what some people are doing, to say, you know what, I don't want to get in trouble for double dipping. Pandemic unemployment assistance would have been better. I'm going to return my loan. So that is an option. You can call your bank and see if you can return your loan. But for some other people, if your PPP is really small and you're wondering, well, can I just continue to certify my claims and claim that income? The answer may be yes. And I'm going to show you a few things here just so that, again, you can make the decision yourself. I am hashtag not a lawyer, okay? So that's important to say. I'm a CPA. I am not a lawyer. But I want to give you the information. I'm going to show you a few of the places in the CARES Act where we talk about this. So I'm going to jump over here into the interim final rule. This is actually the Treasury interim final rule. This is the one I was talking about before, actually, the one that was issued on April 14th. If you go out to the treasury.gov website, you're going to see about 10 different interim final rules, but it's the one on April 14th that talks about sole proprietors. And in it, when you look for anything on unemployment, here is what you get. You see, in addition, you should be aware that participation in the PPP may affect your eligibility for state-administered unemployment compensation or unemployment assistance programs, including these different programs. Basically, it's talking about the PPP loan, and it's talking about your pandemic unemployment assistance and the employee retention credit, which is also an option. If you don't get PPP, you could do employee retention credit. So what this is saying, and what I find interesting, and some of you guys may have picked up in this language, right? A lot of people are saying you can't get both, right? You can't. It's a bright line. And I think that that's the most conservative way. I think that's probably, if you are very risk averse, don't get both, right? If that really concerns you and it's going to keep you up at night wondering if somebody's going to come ask you what's going on, don't get both. But if you are more of a person that's okay in the gray, you probably picked up on one word in here: may affect. Right? It doesn't say it definitely will. It doesn't say you're automatically disqualified. It says may affect. Right now, that's really all that they have said, okay, about what happens if you get both. So that leaves a lot of opening of, okay, well, what does that mean exactly? So as a CPA, here's how I will interpret what I think they mean by that. I think what that means is you, in some instances, could claim that as income. So your PPP money that you are going to pay yourself with, right? Let's say you're taking that owner amount, that 8 weeks of payroll based off of your 2019 net profit, okay? If you're taking that amount and paying yourself with it over the 8 weeks so that you can get forgiven, again, remember, you don't actually have to pay yourself with it as a sole proprietor, LLC, independent contractor. But in theory, that's what you're doing. You're being forgiven for that amount as payroll, right? If you take that amount, divide it by 8, and claim 1 week of that over the course of the 8 weeks. So again, let's say you're going to be, let's pick a low number. Let's say that number is $1,600 that you're going to be forgiven for owner play over that 8 weeks. That's $200 a week over those 8 weeks, right? When you are doing your certification for your unemployment, there should be a place where you can put in how much money you made. So if you're still making money in your business, a little bit of money, you might have to claim some amounts there, right? In this case, you would put in to that certification that $200 related to PPP. That's what I believe you may be able to do, okay? Again, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm going to show you what supports what I'm saying, okay? So I'm going to jump on over here to, and I have scoured, let me tell you, I've scoured all of these state websites, or maybe not all of them, but most of the state websites for unemployment looking for answers. And 98% of these states do not actually mention anything with regards to what happens if you get PPP, how do you claim it, anything like that. But I found one that did. So Wisconsin actually does mention this. When you go to their FAQ about PUA, they will actually mention what happens if you get it. It's very, very minimal, but I'm going to try to read into it for you. So you can see Paycheck Protection Program. If I am a self-proprietor, which I've never heard of, by the way, it's usually sole proprietor. I think they kind of got confused between self-employed and sole proprietor. Okay, Wisconsin. If I am a self-proprietor and take a PPP to pay myself, can I still claim with PUA? Okay, so what it says here, we can read it together. The PPP pay is considered wages and must be reported on your claim. The wages may reduce benefits payable based on partial wage formula. So the one state I found that actually mentions PPP says, it doesn't say, hey, you definitely cannot, claim unemployment if you get PPP. Instead, it says it counts as wages. So you do have to put that in where you're asked for how much wages did you make this week, right? Which should be on your certification that you're doing. Every state is a little bit different in how they do those certifications. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly, but you should probably be doing certifications to say, hey, I still am due these unemployment benefits, right? In that, you should be putting in, hey, I made this amount of money. And then every state is a little bit different in what their limits are for how much you can actually make and still be able to claim unemployment, okay? So some are high, like I think in New York, it's somewhere around $500. So if you make, under $500, you may still be able to claim unemployment. And what that means is it may reduce your unemployment benefits, but as long as you qualify still for $1 in state unemployment benefits, you still get the extra $600 in the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, okay? So that's important to note, that as long as you still qualify for something, you'll get that extra $600. So that PPP may reduce it, but you may still be able to get some unemployment benefits. Now, some states have crazy low limits on income. Like I've seen some that are as low as $50, $100, right? So if you make really anything, you're going to completely disqualify yourself for unemployment. So you really have to know your state's rules, and it's going to also be dependent on what your weekly benefit amount is. So in some states, let's say you qualified for a weekly benefit of $225, right? In some states, if you make $1 above $225 in other income, you're disqualified. In other states, there's a more complicated formula where you get a little bit more of a buffer there in how much you can make, but it really just depends, okay? So importantly, really pay attention and take a look at what your maximum income you can make is and still get unemployment. That will tell you a lot, okay? So go check that out. Hopefully it will be in your paperwork that you have somewhere for your unemployment benefits, that you will be able to see how much you can make and still be able to claim any kind of benefits. Again, if you're super risk averse, just stop certifying your unemployment, okay? That's completely fine as well. You can probably get back on it after that 8 weeks, right? So you can take unemployment for all the way up to when you get that PPP, go off of it if that's what you're more comfortable with. That's what probably is more of the consensus around this, saying, to be safe, you should jump off of it, right? We don't know if at the end of this, they're going to come back and look at people who got both, right? And do some kind of cross check and ask you why. But in my opinion, if they do that, and as long as you say, well, yeah, I claimed it on my unemployment. I said, hey, I got this PPP money and I claimed it. I think that's pretty good defense. And the worst case scenario in that situation, again, hashtag not a lawyer, but the worst case scenario I see there is they're like, yeah, that's not really the spirit of it. Give us back those unemployment benefits, right? They're not going to come charge you with fraud. They're not going to do any of those things. I would not expect, right? As long as you're doing something and you're doing it with the best intentions, right? And you're trying to follow the rules and you're not trying to intentionally skirt the rules, then I think you should be okay. So that is what I will say. Again, take it with a grain of salt. There may be some things that come out that clarify this in the future, so I'll make sure that I keep you updated on it. But that's the answer. So the next thing I'm going to mention, because some of you guys are wondering, well, what happens if I just decide to take the PPP loan as a loan and don't try to go for forgiveness? Can I say, well, I didn't have any wages, so I didn't have to claim anything? I've heard that over and over and over again. That one I would probably be a little bit more cautious about doing. And that's because, in theory, if you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, LLC, your forgiveness is basically a calculation. So I can see a scenario in which they're almost going to automatically forgive you that and not necessarily let you take it as a loan. Or even if they do, that's not really in the spirit of the program, right? The spirit, this is the payroll protection program. You got the loan based off of payroll. You could have paid yourself. You opted not to. I'm not sure they're going to feel real great about that, right? They don't really want these to be low interest loans that people are just taking advantage of. They want this to be something that you use to pay yourself so that they can take the burden off of the unemployment system. So I would exercise probably a little bit more caution around doing something like that. But again, look at your own individual risk tolerance. So the last thing I want to talk about too is if you're an employer. How does this work if you're an employer? Okay, so if you're an employer, and in a lot of cases, I know employers are saying, well, my employees don't want to come back because they're on unemployment and they're making more. So what can I do? Can I somehow reduce their hours enough and reduce their pay enough that they would still qualify for partial unemployment, but yet I can still pay them with my PPP loan? That's splitting hairs quite a bit, because now you're trying to not only make sure those employees get unemployment and you don't pay them too much to not be able to get unemployment, which is going to be a little bit different probably for each of them, how much they can earn, right? Now you're also trying to maximize your PPP forgiveness. So that is a pretty complex calculation to get into. Additionally, I would feel like that's a little bit more of a gaming the system, right? That's a little bit more of trying to pay them like $5 less so that they can still get that $600 in federal money where you can still get forgiven. That to me, if you're kind of working with your employee to figure out what those amounts are, I wouldn't feel super great about doing that. Now, I know people who are going to go down that road and try to do that and try to work with their employees about it so that they don't have to kick them fully off. But if you're really sitting there and trying to split hairs over this, then I think that could be an issue. Now, if you're saying, hey, I don't really need to bring them back entirely anyway, I'm not trying to get my full PPP loan forgiven anyway, or I'm going to go hire some other people, I'm just going to pay them for part-time hours and they can still collect partial unemployment if they qualify, fine. But I would be a little bit wary, I guess, of trying to sort of work with them to, I won't say collude, but try to work the system, right? I wouldn't want that to come through as being defrauding the system or something like that. So I would be a little bit careful trying to do that, especially if it would end up in your employee making a heck of a lot more than what they made previously, right? If they're getting paid by you and getting partial benefits, then that would be a problem. And if they are rehired back and making pretty much what they were before, they're not unemployed. So they should not be claiming unemployment. If you are having trouble because you're saying, hey, I need to pay these PPP, I need to pay my PPP loan, my people won't come back, you need to document the fact that you invited them back to work, you asked them back to work, they said no. In that case, you will be held harmless for that in the PPP headcount calculation. They won't ding you for the fact that those employees didn't come back, but it probably will result in them getting their unemployment benefits clawed back. So that's important to know as well. So obviously this puts employers in kind of tough spots, but I just would probably try to avoid trying to split hairs there. with your employees and still trying to get PPP, I would take them off of PPP and rehire them fully back and pay them their normal pay. If they don't come back, then you can report them. You can hire somebody else. You can do any number of things. You can go hire someone to do web design for you and bring them on as a W-2 employee. There are a lot of different things that you can do. You can pay your other employees more hazard pay and document the fact that that employee turned down coming back. There are a few different things you can do, but I would say as an employer, be a little bit careful of trying to work the system with your employees such that they get added benefit on top of it. Because remember, the whole point we need to come back to is the PPP program is to save jobs, right? It's to take the burden off of the unemployment system and bring people back on payroll. That's really the intention. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. That's where things stand today. Again, I will update if anything changes. I also have a video, you guys. If you're here, you probably got the PPP loan or are about to get the PPP loan. I have a tool for you. If you want to try to figure out how you can get maximum forgiveness, go to balancecfo.com/PPP planning. Okay, so that's 4 P's, PPP planning. It's on the screen right now. And you can go grab that tool. It is going to walk you through exactly how to make sure that you get the max forgiveness. It's going to walk through the calculations for you. It's a really great planning tool. So if you haven't downloaded that, go ahead and do it. Also, go check out my video on getting your PPP forgiven. Okay, so that's next in the series. So you probably want to jump on that and check it out because I think that would be really helpful for you as well. I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.